this devotional disconnected. Uh, I take it um, from reading Romans chapter 28, verses 17 through 22. Uh, and it reads, 3 days after Paul's arrival, he called together the local Jewish leaders. He said to them, "Brothers, I was arrested in Jerusalem and handed over to the Roman government, even though I had done nothing against our people or the customs of our ancestors. The Romans tried me and wanted to release me because they found no cause for the death sentence. But when the Jewish leaders protested the decision, I felt it necessary to appeal to Caesar, even though I had no desire to press charges against my own people. I asked you to come here today so we could get acquainted and so I could explain to you that I am bound with this chain because I believe that the hope of Israel, the Messiah, has already come." They replied, "We have had no letters from Judea or reports against you from anyone who has come here. But we want to hear what you believe, for the only thing we know about this movement is that it is denounced everywhere." So I called it disconnected because it's amazing to think how you would think the leaders of a people, in this case the Jewish community of Jerusalem, would want to, spread the news about Paul to the leaders in Rome to let them know of the danger that Paul possessed, I guess you could say, in their eyes. Um, Paul gets there, you know, as Paul explained, he was being tried. They wanted to kill Paul for the fact that he is spreading the gospel throughout Jerusalem. And this is right after, and this is of course after Christ has already risen and and ascended to heaven. So he gets tried by the Roman authority. They found no fault and wanted to release him, but the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem wanted him dead, just like just like they wanted Jesus dead. Um, so Paul wanted to plead his case to Caesar because the Romans themselves didn't find any fault with what he was doing. They wanted to release him. So they wouldn't kill him. They wouldn't give him the death sentence. They, they kept him. They kept him bound, and they granted his request to go to Rome to see Caesar. Now you would think that the leaders of Jerusalem would have notified the leaders in Rome to give them a what's up. Um, and so, Paul gets the leaders in Rome there, the Jewish leaders in Rome, explains what's going on and belief. And the first thing that they tell Paul is that we have no knowledge of anything being bad said concerning you or anything. All we know is that there's some sort of movement that we want to that you know that we want to hear. You know, and all we know that is this movement is being denounced everywhere. So they knew of Christ apparently. They didn't understand what was going on because, as to me, as a people, the Jewish leaders, particularly in Jerusalem, I think, to me, wanted to keep things in house and silenced. Um, it kind of revealed to me how disconnected that people can be. You know, you would have thought that if Paul was that big of a threat because he was sharing the word of Christ, the good news, that they would have forewarned their fellow Jewish leaders in Rome to further their cause of trying to get Paul eliminated. So, well, end result is Paul uh, does set a time to meet with the leaders on a later day because they wanted to hear about, and they considered it a movement. They considered Christ a movement. Christianity was just a movement. It was just a phase, and so maybe that's part of the reason to disconnect is because they truly were so arrogant and haughty in themselves that Christianity would never flourish, that it would die out. Um, but Paul, explained the gospel, told them about Jesus Christ, and some believed, most of them didn't, and then Paul, you know, reveals to them how Isaiah, the prophet, was correct, and when God told them that their hearts are hardened, they cannot see, they cannot hear the truth, um, because they simply don't want to. And he said, but the Gentiles will accept. And in fact, that's what, that's for the most part has what happened in that during that conversation. Some believed, but most didn't. Um, but yeah, that's the reason why I called this devotional disconnect was just because it's you would think a people who consider themselves to be a nation would want to keep their different areas in the know about what's going on, particularly if they thought something was a danger to you know their whole being. Um, so apparently, the Jewish leaders were not concerned about the Jews in Rome. They were only concerned about their people in Jerusalem, only concerned about the people that they were in control over, I think. And and so they never told the Jewish leaders in Rome about Paul, about him spreading the gospel, um, about him needing to be gone, him needing to be eliminated. Um, that's what they would have preferred. But when he went to Rome, it was no longer their problem. He was no longer their problem, and they could have their control back over the Jewish people in Jerusalem in their town. I guess I don't know, but you know, it kind of makes you wonder how disconnected have we become. I've been blessed to be to be living through a merge of two churches, and the two churches that merged, the one that you know, was I was a part of, and the one that we merged with, different different ideas, but one common belief, and that's the belief in Jesus Christ. Came together and following God and reconnecting with God and reconnecting with Christ, and our leaders working together, following what Christ wants the church to do. Um, but like I said, I kind of wonder how are we in danger of becoming just being disconnected as those Jewish leaders were? You know, staying in our own little sphere instead of reaching out and letting other believers know. Possibly, I don't know. But bottom line is, Paul never quit sharing the gospel. You know, and for the part of the Jewish leaders in Rome there, they wanted to know what was going on. So Paul told them the good news, told them the story about Jesus. You know, how he came to earth a virgin, how he lived a sinless life, how he loved everybody um, that was lost. He searched them out. You know, how he healed them, how he saved them. You know, how he willingly gave up his life, shedding his blood for all of mankind to be reconciled back to God. How he's buried, how he rose again, and how he's ascended. And more importantly, his personal encounter with Jesus when he was on this road to Damascus. And shared with them how Jesus told them that he was selected to preach the gospel to the Gentiles and that the Gentiles would believe, whereas the chosen people, the Jewish people, would not. Um, but yeah, we can't be in danger of being disconnected like the Jewish leaders of back then. Um, I don't know. Yeah, it's just what was on my heart, and that's what I wanted to share. So, anyways, I love you guys. You have a blessed day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.